Hello and welcome to Petro Media. I'm your host, Terrence Anderson, and today I am going to go take a trip to Guitar Center. I haven't been to a music store in a long time, and I'm bringing my two youngest with me. Boys, say hi.
Hi.
Yeah, the two little knuckleheads are coming with me. So I'm on daddy duties, but I haven't been to a music store to buy anything in a long time, and I'm not going to be buying anything today. I've heard stories about how the Guitar Center's used section looks, and I figured it's time to take a look at that and see what I could find out there as deals. I'm also looking at audio interfaces. I do love my SSL 12, and I'm probably going to keep that one for now. I also have a PreSonus IO Station 24C, which is also a great interface, which I think I'm going to keep it. One of my kids is looking at possibly getting into music production, so I'm probably just going to give that one to one of them. And the SSL 12 might actually get the same treatment, might go to one of the other ones. But for me, I've had some considerations for what I would like for the studio. Currently, the Midas is packed up, and it's going to stay that way for a little while. Because we're in the middle of a lot of different things, a lot of moving parts in our family. I'm not getting rid of the Midas. I love the Midas. But I want to have all of the ins and outs. I'll admit it. It's been fun summing things down with the Midas. But the main purpose of the Midas is to track things in. So when I use, for example, the MPC 5000, that's going to be 10 outputs because you have the 8 outputs plus the stereo outputs. So I have 10 outputs. Plus, I have the 4 outputs from the Phantom. So right there, that's 14 outputs one time into the machine. Now, I am looking at a couple other synths that I want to pair with the 5000 because the plan is to have the 5000 be its own standalone unit. The Studio 2 has become a sort of favorite from me now that I know and understand how it really works and just getting into its workflow. I don't see a reason for me to buy another machine like the Studio 2 or any of the newer machines. I want to see what Akai has in store for next year because I have a feeling next year they're going to give us something different. So today, what we're going to do is look at a couple of interfaces, new interfaces, see what's in the used category, but I think I'm looking at something new for next year because I definitely want more ins and outs. The mission is to have at least 32 ins for the Midas because I can always run the microphone through the Midas. The Midas's pre's are actually really good. If not, I can have an extra in here and there. Plus, I also still have an ADAT with another 8 inputs. I really don't need more than that. Again, the 5000 can handle 4th external synths. I do plan on buying at least 2 more. So for me, it makes sense to have it this way for now. And then I can just track everything one time in. I love doing sound design. And although I know I can do that in the box, it is so much fun to do it with hardware. And with what we have in store over the next several months, it just makes sense to do things the way I'm going to do it. And it doesn't make sense to everybody, but it makes sense for me. Let me put it that way. It makes sense for my brain and how I function to do what I'm thinking about doing. So we're on the road. We're on our way to the highway. We're going to touch base with you guys when we get to the other side at the store. All right? Boys, say bye.
Bye.
One of the things as we're about to pull up to Guitar Center in a few more minutes, I used to work for a music store, and I mentioned this before in a couple of other videos, but I never said which store it was. I used to work for Chuck Levins, aka Washington Music Center, and I did that for I think about 2 years. I was originally a salesperson, and then I moved over to the Holmes keyboards department where I was selling anything from upright and grand pianos to electronic computers, pianos, etc., the whole nine. And eventually became the home keyboard manager for a little while. before the music production stuff really took off and I landed my first placement with a major artist. And it was a lot of fun. I got a chance to test out a lot of gear during that time. I mean, on the days that were slow, I literally just went around the room checking out keyboards and pianos and figuring out the things that I like. When the first MPC 1000s came in, we got a bunch of them. And I think I had 2 of them in my area for a while for testing and playing around with. Eventually I bought one of the blue ones. The blue ones with the red sides. That's when I learned about the problem with the pads. The pads on the original 1000 were terrible. Not because the equipment wasn't up to the standards, it was literally just the pads. For some reason, those individual pads had some significant give for some reason, and it would cause phantom triggers. So the device would literally double trigger or sometimes not trigger or cancel out a trigger. It was just like you never knew what was going to happen when you pressed the pads. Like when you got it, it was great, for the first couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden it would start having this double trigger MIDI nonsense happening. And it was just throwing off the way people were making their beats, and everybody got frustrated with it. So I ended up getting rid of the 1000 because I was frustrated with it. But the 1000 was great for sampling. So I was able to capture a lot of drum sounds out of a lot of keyboards from back then. They sound so good, so dirty, so rich, like just the perfect tool for sampling what I was sampling at the time. And I kept those, and you guys have access to some of them, and I'm gonna start unloading a couple more for you guys to try out. It also gave me the opportunity to check out a lot of different things. I got to see the Phantom S, the Phantom XA, the Phantom X, Korg Tritons, all the Tritons, the Korg Oasis, just a myriad of keyboards. I ended up, because of my experience and time working there, I decided to buy my first Motif ES as well as the Phantom X6 to pair with my 2000 XL. And that combo was so good. But after a while, I realized I didn't need the 2000 XL, and just like right before everything popped with the music career, I decided to sell the 2000 XL. Now, I've always regretted that decision because I loved that machine and it was one I started with, and you should never sell your baby. But I did that to make sure my wife and I at the time was okay because we needed like a little bit of extra funds at the time. But I don't fully regret the decision to make sure my family was okay. I just regret that I had to leverage that device to make that happen. And that's normal. There's no reason to not feel a way about decisions like that because it happens. But your family always comes first, and you take care of everybody in the household and make sure they're all right. That's priority number one. That experience working at Washington Music Center taught me a lot about microphones. It taught me a lot about audio cables. I learned a lot about mixing consoles. I learned so much from those several years working there and having access to practically every possible piece of gear that once I actually went to school for audio engineering, it just kind of closed the loop on what I need to do for my use case. So to that end, when I decided to start buying pieces for the studio again, everything had a path. I mean, the only thing that I wasn't sure on was the audio interfaces because we already had those from the big studio that we had, but they're no longer supported. And I got a great deal on the SSL 12, but it's just not enough inputs. It's so great to just do one pass and just do everything one time. I don't do too much vocal recording with the Midas nowadays. Although I can do that, I just really don't do that. I tend to just use the Midas primarily to track the audio out of the machines and into Logic. And I think that's where the Midas shines for what I'm trying to do. And since I already own it, it just didn't make sense to replace it. Even though I've considered buying a couple of digital mixers, recallability is not something I necessarily need. I'm pretty much just going to set the channels that I need to set for the 5,000 for the drums, and then everything else is just at the whim of what I feel when I listen, track the audio in, and then I'm done with the Midas. So it doesn't need to be a constantly changing mixing console. It's pretty much just for tracking things in. All right, so we're outside. Guitar Center's right over there, and I'm gonna get the boys out, and we're gonna head in, and we're gonna see how things go. Let's see if we can have some fun. You're gonna wake him up for me?
Yeah.
Say, wake up. You like that one?
Yeah.
Oh, I should get that, right?
What is that?
They have a small section from what I thought I was gonna see here. They do have a Key 61 MPC. I've been actually considering picking up one of these. I don't like these pads, they're so small. But I guess I can get past that. So I don't know. I have to decide between the Key 61 and the Key 37. We'll discuss that a little bit later on, but let's take a look at some of these synths and see what's in store. I gotta say, not as much stuff as I expected, but the MPC 61's got my attention. There's a Phantom 8 here that could be something to add to the equation. But again, I don't really want another workstation. I really want to get like 2 or 3 synthesizers, possibly even some modules, because I don't need that much. But I'm also considering things. So this is one of the things I'm looking at is the PreSonus HD8 Quantum. That might be something to consider. And I'm gonna take a look at the back room and see what else they have in the recording area, because most of the stuff is kind of small and limited. Now their mic selection is really nice. I have to say I'm pretty impressed with what I'm seeing over here for microphones. They have the whole selection of warm audio mics. The Lawton audio mics, those are huge. Now, size doesn't always mean better, but I've heard nothing but good things from the Lawton audio microphones. And the Manleys, the Manleys are the Manleys. You already know. We're not even gonna get into that. I actually own a C414, but it's been damaged because it was dropped and I need to get it replaced. I used to own this mic, the TLM 49. This mic is incredible. And I regret having to sell it when I sold my 2000 XL, so I might try to buy that back in the near future. We'll see. And yeah, oh, and you know, another one I want to try out is the Lewitt Ray, but I don't see it here. No, I don't see it here. So I guess we're just gonna run around the store for a little bit, let the boys check out everything and... All right, so we're leaving the store. We've looked at a couple of things, and I think I'm gonna give you my thoughts when we get to the park, because I just wanna kind of process a couple of things that I noticed in there. Nothing negative in the sense of the staff. Staff is amazing. That wasn't the issue. I have some other things that I had thoughts about. And it probably has more to do with the brand itself. Last thoughts while I'm at the playground real quick. I saw the MPC Key 61 up close, and I have to say I wasn't really that impressed with it. Not because it's a bad device. I think it's a great device. I just didn't like how the keys felt. And I kind of now see what everybody's talking about, why the pads are so small. The pads could have been bigger because there's so much space on that front deck that there's no reason they couldn't have just made the pads bigger. I think that would have been pretty cool. They didn't need to be the MPC 1 size pads. And now I understand why everybody's saying, get to know the Studio 2 because you have it and you have the size, and I have big hands. So I like having the big pads. The 1000 pads are not that big, but they're wider. like they're rectangular, they're not square. So they're actually wide pads. So it works out really well for me because they're about the width of the normal pads, even though they're shorter. But the tiny square pads, I don't like that. So that's like my 2 cents on that. But the rest of it is essentially kind of like they merged MPK 61 with the one pads and then added the touch strip. So there's some pros and cons to that. But overall, I think it's actually a good combination, but I don't think it's the one for me. And consequently, that's probably going to mean I'm not going to look at the MPC 37 key for the same reason, because I already have a portable keyboard that I take with me. And the form factor with the Studio 2 and the portable keyboard is still so much smaller than the Key 37 anyway. So that's all I really had to say on that part of it. It was just good to finally see one up close and make a final decision on whether I'm going to go that way. But I think unless Kai comes out with a new MPC next year, I'm probably going to look at getting the MPC X SE. I think that's the final decision at this point. The other issue I had was the lack of interfaces. There weren't a lot of audio interfaces for you to choose from. And that might be more so because of the market. But again, who's buying this many guitars? So, and it seemed like they were all sitting for forever. There's a lot of guitars in there that were just there, not really being used for anything. I'm not really understanding the move, but either way, there just wasn't a lot to look through. There were a lot of monitors, which was cool, but a lot of used monitors to look through, not too many new ones. And I'm pretty sure they have a warehouse in the back. Just like any good music store, they have a warehouse in the back with all the extra supplies. So I'm sure you can get your hands on, something brand new that you could, you want to work with. But my issue is outside of in the back room where the recording studio area was, they didn't have too much of a selection. On their site, you can see a ton of options. And I guess that's unfortunately the nature of how things have rolled over the last several years. Everybody orders from what they see and not what they feel or hear. And that's kind of disappointing. I remember about 10 years ago, last time I went into a Guitar Center, I walked in, they had a couple of drum machines, and keyboards set up, and a ton of speakers and audio interfaces. And I could just go and sit down and just practice and play and try a whole bunch of different things and make a decision. Today, it just felt like it was a lot of the middle of the road monitors, some Cali Audios, which I do like the Cali Audios, and some Yamahas. I'm not a huge fan of the Yamaha monitors, but that's a personal preference thing. And that's kind of it. Like, there really wasn't a lot to choose from. And then, of course, they had a couple of focals. They had the focals set up for the demos, but no focals set up for you to demo. Does that make sense? Like, they had it set up on where you could do the selection to test out things with the keyboard and the Focusrite Claret 8.3, but that's more so for you to pick and choose your sounds. And then when you send the signal around the room to all the monitors, there were no focals in the room. So that was a little disappointing. But again, not a negative on the staff. The staff was great. My twin 3-year-olds are a handful. They run around and they get into everything. They gravitated towards the drums. And apparently they seem to want me to buy a Yamaha Montage. I'm not buying one of those things. It's a lot of money for what it is. Great keyboard, but a lot of money. For the most part, they're just really nice people. No complaints. Really nice, polite. They let us do whatever we wanted without interfering with us, which was great. Especially considering 3-year-olds can definitely get into a lot of different things. They just let us be. And I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, now I'm kind of seeing why it was kind of dead in the store. And it seems like that's kind of the pattern, that everybody's just buying things online from what they see and from what the specs are. I feel like we need to change things back a little bit when it comes to everything. I mean, we're kind of picking music the same way, like nowadays. Like, I see this, that's kind of cool, I'm just gonna grab it, rather than really like enjoying the music and letting it resonate with you. It's the same thing with the tech. I never was an impulse buyer. I think I've only bought one thing on impulse and I regretted it and immediately returned it. I guess my take on the whole thing my take on the whole thing is I was a little disappointed in the fact that you couldn't really just get into everything. I could see how you can get to test out microphones and things like that, but there didn't seem like there was an option for you to really get into all of the gear and figure out what you like. And I think that's the part that's missing. Like, I think maybe that's part of what would help to change the way things are going in music right now. Because if you think about it, a lot of people are buying the stuff that they know and they gravitate to because they've used it from before, and will buy the new interfaces and new devices because we're told about the specs, and the specs are great. But if you have never had a chance to actually try it out, how do you know that this is the right thing for you and your needs? And that's really, really missing these days. You know what I mean? Like, that was like one of the things I loved about going into stores. And now I'm seeing that unless I go and take a trip to Sweetwater or Vintage King, I'm probably not going to be able to do that anymore. So I don't know. I gotta think on what that means for, I guess, now with the things that I want to do. I still want to test out a couple of audio interfaces, so we have to figure that out. I might have to make a trip to Vintage King to go check it out, because I know they have a layout where I can actually really get into all of the different devices and see what I like and what I don't like and make some decisions. So that might be the direction. We'll see. Anyway, I think that's it for this vlog. If you like what I've been talking about, like, share, and subscribe, and join me next time on Petro Media Inc. And the boys had a great time at Guitar Center, and I think I'm going to be buying drums. Pray for me. Say bye, guys.